Thank you all for having me. I am delighted to be here, honored to be here. This is important work and an impressive community of organizations and individuals who are working on it. I am David Wood. I work at a place called the Initiative for Responsible Investment, which is an applied research project at Harvard Kennedy School in the United States. And I think I'll just say a few things about the work that we've done that seem relevant to what you're working on here in the form of questions that we've tried to ask and for which we haven't really gotten answers yet, but we're working on them. The initiative where I work, and apologies for my voice, my 10-year-old son gave me a cough on my way out, in part because he's bitter that he was not allowed to come to Lisbon. So we work with mission-driven investors, public and private, who are trying to use financial capital to achieve social goals. We also work with policymakers who are trying to create a policy framework that moves investment towards the achievement of social goals. And then recently, over the past few years, and this is what I'll talk about here, we've been working with places in the United States, with metropolitan regions, who want to attract investors who want to achieve these social goals, who have in their minds projects that are investable, but it turns out the investors who are out there who say they want these sorts of things haven't been investing in them. And the question we've been working on is, how do places develop the capacity to work in the kind of field of investing in the civic economy that this project is working on? The first thing I'll say is that one of the problems in this world was already mentioned by Mario Calderini. There's a great deal of talk about impact investment and the civic economy and social innovation, but that hasn't translated into a lot of investment on the ground. In part, that's because it's a very new field. There's a lot of hype, there's a lot of interest, but the system hasn't been developed yet in order to deliver on this promise. And one of the exciting things about this project is that you're taking the ecosystem approach, and you're thinking about what needs to be built to make this a durable mechanism instead of incidental investments. But I think, we've also found that the reason the money sort of hasn't flown the way that people's intentions have flown is because for all the talk of developing a new system, people are trapped in the conventional ideologies, conventional financial practices that aren't going to deliver on the kinds of things that you're searching for because they haven't yet. There's a reason they haven't. And so this is a substantial set of work. It's not just a switch that goes one off. It's hard work. In the US, the people who work on investing in what we call community development finance, which is something like, I think, the way that civic economy is being talked about here. They call their work brain damage work. And they work on really hard problems and really hard investments that involve multiple sectors: public, private, nonprofit, community. Each deal is very idiosyncratic. Each deal involves endless series of hurdles. They say in the US, we say the project goes sideways, or it goes south. For some reason, south is bad. My family's from the south. We resent this. And at the end of every deal, people, tired, celebrate. They have a glass of champagne, and they say, that's great. And then they recreate the same problems that caused all the brain damage in the first place because they don't have a new system to work with. So I think that's the question that we're wrestling with. How do you create this system that reduces the transaction costs of investing in the civic economy? Two things have jumped out in reading. I have already read the paper that you're ordered to pick up and read after this. Two things really jump out. One, there's the question of financial infrastructure. And what does it mean to develop financial intermediaries that can deliver on this promise of investing in the social benefits that would come from a robust civic economy? And the creation of the bank, the capitalization, the blending of public and private money that's being talked about here, goes directly to that question. What is the right kind of vehicle that will be the finance instrument that does this good? And there are two issues I'd raise here. One, what are the governance structures that must be embedded in this kind of vehicle so that the social mission drives the investment decisions? And how do you manage that question tactically so that you can still function and yet make sure that the social mission is the core of what the intermediary does? The second issue that we've encountered, so we work in these different municipalities. Some of them have very strong intermediaries. Some of them don't have any at all. Some of them have strong intermediaries that do, say, affordable housing, but what's needed are health clinics, or what's needed is affordable childcare. They don't work in the right sectors. And what we've found is that intermediary expertise can be imported from elsewhere in local communities. But it can only be incorporated when there's a system of trust and when there is community involvement from the local community. And the question of managing how you bring that external expertise into a place and how that intermediary can function nationally, but also really have local credibility, I think is just core. And is the kind of thing you'll wrestle with as you go through this project. So that's for the intermediaries. Now, in our work, what we also found was that when people weren't able to invest in the civic economy, they would say, well, it's because we don't have what we call a community loan fund or a community bank or one of these mission-driven intermediaries in our town. And if we had one, everything would be better. But it turns out you don't just have one of these intermediaries or not. You have a system locally that allows for this kind of investment. And it's not just one institution that will make that investment work. And so we've looked at ways to try to understand what local capacity looks like. And I'll just say 3 things very quickly about what local capacity looks like, at least in the US, but I think it's relevant to what you're working on here. 1, if there is not a multi-sector, public, private, non-profit, civic, however you want to describe it, but a multi-sector group that is focused on prioritizing resources that has come together on a set of social goals, there can be no action. There has to be a community that actually supports what the goals are that people are trying to achieve with this kind of investment, but also that monitors and makes sure they're executed. And that has been, I did not believe this was true until we did the work, and I've found it to be true. Second, there is a great deal that can be done within local communities to make what is needed and also what needs investment more transparent. Information is not flowing about what kinds of deals are out there and about who can execute them. And the data that's come up now several times in discussion is fundamental. And I think there's a lot of research that can be done, but also a lot of engagement around that. And then finally, you can take that data and try to create a pipeline of investable opportunities with intermediaries, bringing the intermediaries in initially, so that there's a constant discussion about where finance can be useful. Because there's no point in investing in something that is not ready for investment or that does not need investment to flourish. And so creating this pipeline as part of your infrastructure development, I think, is a fundamental task that I would encourage you to look at as you develop this platform. Thanks.